into the United States. So um,
Do you have a good lunch over there?
dinner.
Oh, you had dinner over
Yeah, yeah,
there.
yeah. I always go over there and have
You
dinner,
had
get my
dinner.
boots shined, and
Yeah.
yeah,
So how was dinner in the Acuña?
it's good
It
as
was
usual.
good.
Yep. Give a
Well,
plug to my favorite restaurant, owned by the Menchaca family, which is called Manuel's.
Manuel's. All right, and Easter is coming up.
Happy Easter, everybody.
Happy Easter to everybody. We have a Good Friday this Friday and this coming Friday. What is your plans for?
I have been called in to cook a brisket for the family.
Wow, over
So,
there in your sister's ranch,
well, yeah, I don't know where, but
but somewhere.
somewhere. I'll be
Okay,
smoking a brisket.
perfect. So what is going on in politics?
Well, a lot. We still have the crises at the border,
Mm-hmm.
which there is. I read today that Guatemala is preparing to send another caravan, not the state, but not the country, but individuals. So we may have another wave of undocumented people wanting to come into the country. What they call the caravanas,
Caravanas. And
caravans.
today we have a special guest, Latino, and he's a city council member in
Santa Fe.
Santa Fe. That is in Galveston County.
That is in Galveston County. A lot of people think it's New Mexico, and it's not. It's
Yeah,
Galveston
I
County.
didn't know that we have a Santa Fe
We do.
nearby.
Yeah.
Very
The
good.
city of Santa Fe. And he is a Navy veteran and a businessman, and also serves his community. He comes from a big family in Galveston County that's been involved in business for a long time. We try to feature, because a lot of people don't realize how many conservative Latinos serve in public office, in elected offices like school boards and community college boards and local city councils. And so this is one of our young conservatives that has not only served his country but is now serving his community. He's a family man, just a good all-around conservative fellow. So we wanted to bring him on board today.
So Fidencio Leija, I'm gonna ask the producer if we have him already. Okay, perfect. Fidencio, good morning. Can you hear
Buenos
us?
dias. How are you guys doing?
We're good, Fidencio. How are you?
Outstanding. Can't complain one bit.
Well, you sound good and, handsome as ever. So we're glad that you took a few minutes to be with us. I've had the pleasure of visiting with you for, a couple of, on a couple of phone calls, and then I had the pleasure of meeting you in person. And, we just wanted to share your views on local politics, what's going on in the city of Santa Fe, what's going on in Galveston County, how you got started in politics. Maybe tell us a little bit about your bio, and ultimately we want to hear why you are a conservative in Texas. And when we say conservative, people automatically think we mean Republican. I always say most conservatives do join the Republican Party, but we have a lot of great Tejanos that are conservative, that, as they say, are on the other side of the aisle. Son demócratas, they're Democrats. But, without the D label, you would think they're Republicans. So start off with your bio, Fidencio. Tell us a little bit about, where you were born, where your family's from, how many family members, your military service, on and on and on.
Well, let me first start off by saying thank you to both of you for the opportunity to be on here. And second of all is that it's a blessing to be able to connect with individuals like your audience. For me, it's very important to tell the story of my parents. My father originally from Nuevo León, and grew up in un ranchito in Nuevo León. And so, and my mother from the frontera. She's from Reynosa. But my parents met when my father left a ranchito in Nuevo León and came to the frontera and met my mother. And they made a decision to come to the U.S. for better opportunities. But who brought them over was actually my aunt, which was the oldest on my father's side, and he actually married a military man, and so he served in the military, and my aunt was doing well for herself, so They brought over my father and mother, and my parents ended up having 7 boys and 1 girl, and became citizens under Ronald Reagan during the amnesty. And now they had, there was 10 of us, right? We grew up very humble in the city of Galveston on the island, but we lived where there was a 2-story house where 2 families lived downstairs. We lived upstairs like tamales, right? All piled up on top of each other. But the best thing was is that we saw the hard work of my father. The only time that we got to see my father was on Sundays, right? He was committed to taking us to church, but my father worked 2 or 3 jobs, and he was a foreman down in Galveston at the Moody Compress. But overall, my dad's commitment to always bust his butt and do what was right, that's what I saw. And seeing that he never wanted to, put his hand out and ask for a favor or ask for anything additional. He said, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it the right way. And on top of that is that being able to see also my mother work, right? My mother worked at some of the very well-known cafeterias in Galveston. If you know the the flagship that was on the island, which is no longer there. The flagship is now the pier, right? But the flagship, my mother did desserts there. She also worked at the mall that was in Galveston, the Galvez Mall. So the only thing we knew was my parents' hard work. I'm the 4th child out of the 8, but my 3 older brothers were always hard workers as well. They worked at Guido's restaurant. They worked at Kenny Shoes, which is a shoe store that was at Galvez. So seeing that hard work ethic, and it was about family, our faith, and hard work. And those 3 pillars there, I feel that those are the values where we are today. But after serving and graduating from high school, I went off to the military and served 9 years in the military. So Orlando, I know that you served in the military, so thank you for your service. But that's a big piece for me, not just on my father's side, where his sister married a military man, but also on my mother's side, her sister married a military man. And those 2 individuals really impacted how I think and my pillars of, again, faith, family, and hard work.
Fidencio, I know you served in the Navy, and as you mentioned, I served in the Air Force. I
Yes,
always
sir.
kid my friends. I have several former Navy vets, and I always kid them that they ought to leave the flying to the Air Force, and
Come on.
the taxpayers should never give the Navy airplanes.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
And I think that our military service, Orlando, is a foundation for the future of Texas and just nationally. What we bring to the table as veterans is that we understand that the mission is more important than ourselves, right? We understand that we're working with across the aisle with individuals from different parts of the world. We're even working with people that came to the US, and now maybe like for me, when I was in the Navy, there was a large population of Filipinos, right? And they were given the opportunity to serve our country and then become citizens. So we got to see that. I got to see that firsthand, that there's individuals that come into this country that are really committed to the mission, and the mission is America. How do we keep America with those ideals of happiness, prosperity, and growth, right? And I think if we stick with those pillars, our country can move in a lot better way. And so I'm always recommending our veterans, especially the enlisted, right? And that's what I can speak about. I can't speak from the officer side because I never have been on that side. But from the enlisted side, our veterans bring a lot to the table. I think both parties need to make a commitment to recruit more veterans to run for local office. And I want to be one of those individuals to be an example for other veterans and say, hey, look, I come from this, I served my country, now I want to return home and make a commitment to serve my community in office.
So when Fidencio, when you decide that you needed to be a voice for your community and run for office because that was gonna make a difference in your community?
Well, that's a great question. And I think it comes with time. And I think that me as a veteran, I think you have to be one intentional in your decision, but also very strategic and know that you're well rounded and you're ready for that. Because again, um, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to run for office. You also have to think about is that you got to start taking the heat, and there's going to be bullets flying at you, right? Because people are going to be looking at your life, looking at your family as a whole. Now I have kids. I have a daughter that's 15. My son is 6, and my youngest is 2 years old. And then my wife, she's a nurse. She's been a nurse for 20 years. So I know that the spotlight is going to be on you. So I think that what the great thing again, veterans are usually have thick skin, right? Now we have that rhino skin. So I think the military prepared me for it. But what ended up happening to me is after I got out of the military, I tried college. I didn't know if college was for me or not, but I said, man, I have this GI Bill. Let me go test it. I took one class and then I became addicted to reading and addicted to learning. So as I became more entrenched in academia and learning, I started realizing that there was a few gaps that were out there. And I became involved in the community. I was involved in Harris County for a good while. But there was one lady that was a very well-known activist in Houston, and her name is Maria Jimenez. She recently passed
Right.
away.
Yeah.
But I went to an event where she spoke, and Maria Jimenez said, look, and someone asked her, say, how do you get started in doing what you have done for the Latino community and just for people in Harris County? And she answered the question with this phrase. She says, if you want to make a difference and you want to make change the world, go back to your hometown and start there.
Wow.
And when she made that statement, I was like, wow, I'm living in Houston. This isn't my hometown. I'm living in Houston. And I said, wow, that's a major statement. The next couple of weeks, I just couldn't sleep. And now at the time, I was working for neighborhood centers and human resources as their community engagement and business development. So I made a decision to go back home based on that. And I went back home, and my hometown is the city of Santa Fe. It's a small town where when I went to high school, it was less than 9% Hispanics there. Today, it's over 25%. So now that I'm back, I started realizing that I needed to be involved. And what was the turning point after I returned home was the mass school shooting that hit our school. I don't know if you remember that, but it was
Yeah.
Of
um,
course.
May 2018, and the shooting happened. It devastated our town, it devastated our county, and it devastated our state. That we lost 10 individuals, 8 of them were students, 2 of them were teachers. And they asked me to be on the board for the National Compassion Fund, who comes in and takes care of the legal side as well as the funding. And so I was on that board, and I took an important role to be part of that discussion, but figure out how we help heal our city. So from that experience, individuals started coming to me and asking me, hey, we would like you to consider running for school board. And I said, whoa, 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 hold on. This is moving a little bit too fast. But the good thing is the timing was wrong because it was too late for me to file and it was too late for me to run for school board. So I thought I got away, right? And then they came back to me and they said, well, we would like you to run for city council. And I said, okay, well, let me explore it. Let me look into it. And then come to find out, there was only 2 options: run in an open seat or run against an incumbent that had been there for 14 years. Now, the easy route is to go run for the open seat. And as we know in politics, there's going to be 3 to 5 people and it's going to be flooded with candidates, right? So I made a decision to run against the incumbent. That was the most senior individual, been there 14 years. He was on the board. His son was on the board, council with him as well. And the former mayor was their brother-in-law. So it was a family affair. And we haven't had a Hispanic in the city of Santa Fe for over 20 years, and there's only been one. And that individual was Dr. Rosario. I think her last name was Ramirez. So she was a doctor. She was an MD. So for me to fill those shoes was a big deal, right? So, and we hadn't had anyone, and she was the first Latina ever to be on the Santa Fe City Council. Now, 20 years later, they're asking me to run, and we made a decision. I talked to my wife, which is probably the most important
Yeah, you got
person
to
for me
check.
to
You got
get
to check with
support
the
from.
boss.
Absolutely, you got to check with the boss, and so she signed off on it. You know, she's the boss, and she signed off on it. And she said, if you're going to do it for the right reasons, and you're going to help our city move in the right direction, I'll support you. And then I talked to my father-in-law, my mother-in-law. I talked to all of my brothers, my sister, my parents, and I just went down the list and I started making phone calls. So if there's any candidates out there that are really considering running, I highly recommend to talk to your family first and then reach out to local business owners and then the local leaders. And that's what I did. So I
Well, good.
went out to them and I asked the question, what's important to you if I run? And that was my question to all of them.
Good. Hey, Fidencio, I want to
Yes, sir.
develop. I guess I want to ask two questions.
Yes,
First of
sir.
all, I want to focus on. I mean, my sense is that you talked about faith and family, and service to your country, service to your community, your work ethic of your mom and dad. Obviously,
Yes,
they
sir.
were immigrants, and your grandmother was immigrant, and aunts, and you know, what do you think? And we're not trying to put words in your mouth, but my sense is that you're on the conservative side when you talk about liberalism, socialism. I think you're on the conservative side. You're free markets. You're for the Constitution. You're for strong national
Yeah.
defense. You want to fight for the family. You want to generally do what's basically what we call law and order. Um, in a very few words, what led you to that track? In other words, why do you land on the more conservative side of the political philosophy?
Well, that's easy for me. As you see right behind me, you see the word blessed. And I truly believe in my faith. I grew up Catholic, and a lot of people say, well, I grew up Catholic, but I wasn't a practicing Catholic, right? As they get older. Well, I've been a practicing Catholic my entire life. And an individual that was very involved in our family was Father Daniel. He was actually came over, and he was an immigrant himself to the U.S. and he came over from Czechoslovakia. But this individual here uh, really impacted our family and my older brothers. You know, he took my brother to Rome and got to visit Rome, and that was my older brother, so I got to witness that. But he was my godfather. But I say that because when you start thinking about our ideals, our traditions, our beliefs, nuestra gente siempre son bien enfocados en nuestra religión, ¿no? And so that is very important. Our religion and our faith is what is the lens that we see the world. And so when you have that lens and you're seeing it through doing God's work and having that strong faith of family and wanting to serve, it's very easy to think that to know that you're a conservative.
Yep.
There's those values are there. Now, I know you and I had a great conversation about the term that's used about being a compassionate conservative, right? And I think as a compassionate conservative, we want to have those ideals that our faith is very important. And if we don't lead that way, we're kind of being false. So I guess the short answer is my faith.
Okay. And I want to. Then I'm going to give Andrea some time because she thinks I'm a hog. I like to hog
Well,
all
no,
the
I don't think
time.
you are.
Anyway, part of the problem in our country is, and I always tell everybody, hay que jugar con un equipo, los rojos o
Hmm.
los azules. No, you have to play on a team, the red team or the blue team. You have to make a
Hmm.
decision in politics because there's, you
Yes.
can't straddle the fence. You have come from a background that you've been influenced by a lot of Democrats and probably a lot of conservative Republicans. You mentioned Maria Jimenez. I've known her for many
Yep.
years. God rest her
Yep.
soul. She and I were not on the same side from,
Yep.
I always thought she was a little more socialist, brought a lot of the socialist Central American view of
Uh-huh.
government, but, it was never anything personal. you ran a campaign for for Mr. Fraga, who was also a Navy veteran here in Houston. His father was Felix Fraga, who I served on the city
Yes.
council. Felix ran as a Democrat for Congress. They're Democrats.
Yes.
You also came to my attention through a dear friend of mine, Javier Perez, who,
Yes.
if we have Javier on the show, he will tell us he's a Democrat. But
Right. Absolutely.
I want people to know that both you and I have friendships on both sides of the aisles. We have Democrat friends
Absolutely.
that we engage in conversations with, and so I want people to know that what the media portrays, that Republicans hate Democrats and some Democrats hate Republicans, that's not true. I mean, at least within our community, within the Latino community. Again, I have a lot of Democrat friends who, uh, I feel sorry for them sometimes because I know they struggle, because I know deep in their heart they're conservatives, and it's a race between their compassion, right, to serve
Yep.
others and provide for others. But for me, it's my struggle with, I know that free markets and capitalism, that we can't pay for everything, right? So we all
Hmm.
contribute through taxes, but we want to do what we can and create a safety net in society, but we don't want to create a socialist type system of government where everybody depends on the government, and everybody knows the government gets the money from us, right? So
Yeah.
when the government runs
Yes,
out of
sir.
money, as they have, Fidencio, in my country, Cuba, in Venezuela, in Nicaragua, in Bolivia, in Ecuador, countries that have tried socialism, I'm convinced that the best practice is free markets guided by a constitution. But
Hmm.
it's interesting, and I want people to know that we don't hate the other side. We just
Yeah.
believe that conservatism is the way to go. We believe that our
Well,
community is naturally conservative, and I just and frankly, I asked you. I think that you have voted uh, in the Democratic primary at one time, but um,
absolutely.
right. So,
And
so
and
I
so
want to
and
share that
with
with
that being,
people. What do I want to
yeah,
share that with folks and young people like you that are
yeah.
struggling in their mind, because I have a lot of dear friends that are idealistic liberal Democrats, but as they get a little older, they start to struggle. And so I want people like you to share that, it's okay if we come to the realization that we're a little more conservative than, our liberal Democrat friends.
And I would say the important piece is that the future of our country depends on having both parties successful. Because again, the mission is making sure that we stay an empire and that we stay the America that can serve other countries in a way of letting them know that democracy is more important than anything else. And if both parties don't survive, then we're failing our own country. So the mission is more important. So when we make the statement, or I should say, when I make this statement that Latino conservatives are the ideal elected officials for Texas and the country, it is not a false statement. It's a reality. And the reason why, and more importantly than anything, is that we understand relationships more than anyone else because we battle several things that other communities don't battle, which is the cultural aspect. And I try to share this with people all the time. When I went off to the military and came back, I had to get reindoctrinated into my own family because they saw me differently because now I served my country. So the reacculturation into my own family was very difficult. And I come from a large family. Think about it: six brothers and a sister, and then my mom and dad. There's 10 of us. I mean, it was tough, and it's still tough to this point because again, I was the only one to serve in the military. I was the first one to get my bachelor's degree, and now I'm the only one in my family to be an elected official. And even though I have four of us are business owners in the family, we do lean more conservative. Our religion is there, but that doesn't mean that I cannot respect those that are Democrats And because we have some moderate Democrats that do have conservative values, but they run on the D team.
Yep.
And you've made that statement. I think Javier Perez is a good example. You can go sit down and have un tequilazo with Javier and have a discussion about conservative politics
Without
and
making it
understand that
personal.
there's a blue side and a red side.
Correct.
But again, right now, I think about when I have these deep discussions about conservative values, I think about someone like John McCain. I mean, come on, this guy was a war hero. But the great thing about John McCain, he was highly respected by both parties. Highly respected. He could go across the aisle and talk to someone else and bring them to the table and say, hey, let's come up with a compromise. Let's both get a win out of this bill. How do we make things happen? I
He
feel
was
that
also a Navy
recently,
pilot, wasn't he?
hey, come on, come on. He was a Navy man. Why do you think I'm using a Navy man instead of
That's
an
what
Air
I
Force
thought.
example? So, I think that that's what our country needs today. Our
Yeah.
country needs veterans to take the lead. We need
Well,
veterans that
that's a good
understand how to work with different cultures, different communities, and really can be the negotiators and the mediators on how to move our country forward and not just one party.
Okay. Now let me give Andrea a moment. And by the way, I want to invite anybody that's watching the program. We're gonna make this work. We've only been trying it for
One
3
day.
months. You can click on the link and join the conversation or ask a question. You could send a question on Facebook if you're too shy to be on the program. We'll read it. Andrea, you have a question for
I
Fidencio?
have, well, I want to read
Okay.
one of the comments.
All right, here we
It's
go.
a lady. It's a lady, and she said she's been a Republican all her life, and she emphasized, I am 69 years old, by the way. So she said, for
Hmm.
Orlando, said, I'm a Latina voter. I am so disappointed for the first time that when we had the House and Senate, and that the leadership crumbles under pressure. I think term limits should be placed so there is always fresh conservatives. Now they're complaining, which the Republican Party has done it to themselves. We had a chance, so trouble now that our party croaks all the time. I am a pissed off Republican.
I don't know. We're not.
Wow.
Look. I mean, I don't want to get into the discussion. Term limits. If through the democratic process people want term limits, fine. I think we have term limits. It's called the vote. You don't like them, vote them out. But unfortunately, everybody votes for their congressman or woman because they, just vote for them. So you don't like them, vote them out. That's term limits. I don't like because if you have someone that's doing a good job, keep them. Also, it requires some institutional knowledge to be able to run a city government, a county, a state, or a federal system. And I'm afraid that if we have term limits, we ruin the institutional knowledge and give a lot of power to the bureaucrats. By the way, I served on the Houston City Council right after we instituted term limits. I'm not a fan of term limits. I think that if you don't like your congressman, campaign against them. Go on Facebook, shout out what they've been doing wrong. But you're right. Conservatives, when they were at the helm in Congress, caved. We spent, no offense, we spent like drunken sailors. We increased the debt. We increased, the deficit. And so we've got to lead with our values. And a lot of people may, complain about Donald Trump. I will say this because I say it publicly. Donald Trump was a result of the failures of the Republican Party. Let me repeat that. Donald Trump was a result of the failures of the Republican Party. The Republican Party talks a lot about conservatism, holding the line on fiscal policy, applying conservative principles to problems facing the nation. Hell, they never addressed health care, so the Democrats came in and took care of that. We didn't address the fiscal issues. We didn't lower the deficit. We didn't lower the debt. We compounded the problems. And so we got a man that was a business person, had never been in politics, and led the Republican Party for 4 years. The Republican Party's got some issues, and they're going to have to work through it. But I agree. We do crack under pressure. We didn't lead. based on our values, but I don't know that term limits is the answer.
But that comment lead to a question for you, Fidencio. Um, what do you think we need to do as community, not only the Latino community, but as a community, to engage and to have more people like you to come back to their small towns or to the roots and run for office and be the voice, because she's saying, like, we need to have young conservatives, we need to have more people running for office, because this is very important. We need to, but what we need to do for our community to have these young conservatives to run for office and be the voice, and to change what is going on in the country right now.
So I would say accountability. And a lot of people use this word, but really never hold it to
Although we're
where it
having
needs to
problems
be.
with your audio.
Yeah, Fidencio,
Fidencio, we're having
there's a
problems
problem
with
with
your
your
audio.
audio. I don't know what you did. Did you
You
mess with
changed
something?
something in the audio?
No, ma'am. How about now?
Yeah.
Maybe you have the speakers on?
Are your speakers on?